Okay, good morning. We are continuing studying the Tanya, chapter 13. So, last time we were discussing the beginning of Tanya, chapter 13. Quite some interesting ideas, directly speaking about the Benoni, and then I related it, my personal understanding and capacity, to link it up to 99% of Yidden. 99.9999% of Yidden, which are people who aren't a Benoni, simply put, and how to practically implement these ideas in our lives. And I did that as a practical guidance, not as a theoretical, but rather as really as a practical guidance. Okay, we're continuing chapter 13. We are page and a bit in. So, I remember I ended off the discussion speaking about the concept of a person who's called a tzaddik. People call him a tzaddik, yet the Mishnah says, even if the whole world calls you a tzaddik, consider yourself as if you are wicked. And we came to the simple conclusion that as if you're wicked means you're not actually wicked in thought, speech, and action, but rather you have the potential for wickedness. Your evil inclination has been subdued, could be for a very long time, but the potential of your evil inclination to come to the surface is 100% there. So now we're continuing. Even one whose aspiration is in God's Torah and he studies day and night for its own sake, which means he's not just simply studying as an intellectual pursuit. In a way, I'm saying God forbid, rather everyone should study Torah lishma for the right purposes. Nevertheless, you're talking about a person who's studying the Torah for the highest spiritual pursuit of doing it because this is God's holy Torah and this is what God wants us to do. This is not a proof that his evil has been dislodged from its place in its heart. Right. So again, this is talking about the Benoni. Obviously, how much more so a person who's not a Benoni. But it may still be there in its essence and substance, in their full strength, in the left part of the heart, except that the thought, speech, and action, it does not manifest in those three garments. Right. And this is actually based, interesting enough, on the concept that God gives us the ability for the mind to rule the body, and the mind to rule the heart. The body and the heart in this context being very much related. It's quite an interesting idea, something I've actually I came across last week. Quite fascinating. And not to bring other ideas into the Tanya Shur, but this idea that the mind has the ability to rule the heart is so powerful. It's literally saying, and this it's important to state, first of all, this is not theory, this is actuality. For a person to truly tune into this level and for truly to allow the mind to rule the heart is a very high level. But a person has the potential. Every human has this potential. It's part of the human nature. But it's one of those tools that we have to actively utilize and tune into. It's not a passive tool. Unlike other tools that we have which are more passive, this is very much an active tool. The point is that through the mind, we can really affect our emotions and our body. There's a story, I'm not going to say it now, but basically where a person literally controlled his heartbeat. Literally, with his mind. And it's an unbelievable thought. And within a few seconds, he was able to control his heartbeat. Okay. Therefore, the divine soul, which is based primarily in the intellect, rules over the small city, i.e. the body, i.e. thought, speech, and action. And therefore the whole body becomes a garment for the 613 mitzvahs. Or in other words, his whole body becomes a holy garment, a vehicle for Hashem. However, the Alter Rebbe is clarifying, in its essence, Even for this Yid, who's only Torah all day long, whatever it may be. And he might not even feel his animal soul to a certain degree. Nevertheless, in essence, the godly soul is not won the war. The war's not over. The godly soul might be in charge, but at any moment the animal soul can come out and can fight a very vicious battle. At any moment. There are some exceptions, interesting enough. The one big exception is davening tefillah. Particularly Shachris, not limited to Shachris, the morning davening. This is actually the time and place where the Benoni is able to actually nullify, albeit temporarily, nullify his animal soul. Now, this is also not a passive process, and this is also not a process of, you go to prayer book and you read the prayers quickly, your mind's all over the place, and that good job, your animal soul is nullified. That's not the case by any means. Davening tefillah is a time where there's a greater revelation of godliness in your own life, in the world at large. Interesting halacha that if you're not davening with the minyan, if you're at home for whatever reason, you should daven at the same time the minyan's davening, because there's a spiritual effect happening at that time. It's quite a fascinating idea. But nevertheless, the idea is quite clear, is that this is one moment, not the only moment, but one moment that a person has the ability to tap into, that even the Benoni, where we say even the Benoni, his animal soul is always there, if he tunes into tefillah with enough concentration and devotion, he's actually able to nullify the animal soul for a short period of time. Why do I say a short period of time? Because when the tefillah service is over and he goes back into the world, the animal soul will come out again. Even if he keeps it under control. But the concept is, in tefillah itself, it's possible that the animal soul is not only subjugated, suppressed, but rather is actually nullified. Which means it doesn't even have the potential to come to the surface. But that clearly states it's very difficult for a person to reach that, practically speaking, especially in our generation. But nevertheless, this is a potential. And at other times and moments, it's possible as well. The Alter Rebbe did it limited to prayer, because there's other opportunities for it to happen. Nevertheless, tefillah, this is the main moment. Okay, so what does the Alter Rebbe says? Right. So I use the word nullified. I do apologize. After reading a few more words, I want to take that word back. And this is a learning lesson for me. Whenever I give a shir, it's a learning lesson for me. I learn. But the idea here is that let's put it like this. The animal soul is there, but it just has no ability to manifest itself in those moments of tefillah and the like. Versus throughout the rest of the Benoni's life, the animal soul is dormant, but it can come out. You got it. It can jump out and wage war. But in tefillah, in these moments of tefillah, it seems to me that it's not even possible for the animal soul to jump out. Now, this is when a person tunes properly into tefillah. It might seem like I'm repeating myself, but just to add in one small idea, is that for a person to get to this level, it's a huge war and struggle. And then what happens is a person passes the threshold, so to say. Then this motion happens. Okay. And the concept is that when one nation rises, another nation falls. So that moment of tefillah is the opportunity for the Benoni's godly soul to shine to such a degree, the other nation, the animal soul, just falls and doesn't have that ability. Right. He goes into a bit more of a discussion over here. I'm going to skip it. Fine. Okay, but even the Bainani, these moments of subjugating the animal soul is like a sleeping man. So that it's not that the animal soul disappears forever. It's like he goes to sleep, a deep sleep, but he comes back and awakens. Contrasted to the tzaddik, that it's like the animal soul, to whatever degree, whatever, whether it's 50%, 90%, 100% in a complete tzaddik, whatever it may be, in those percentages, the animal soul literally um, um, is nullified and does disappear, so to say, at least to that degree of the animal soul. Okay, fine. So now we're discussing the beginning of the Tanya. Rava said he was a Bainani. So now his student said to him, Rava, my master, if you are a Bainani, what are we? We are all Rastas. We are all wicked, evil people, which is a bad translation, but conceptually, this is the idea. If you are master, it's like basically the holiest person of that generation, at least one of the holiest people of the generation, is an average person who's equally good and equally bad, then we have no chance. But that's not what Rava was saying. Rava was saying as follows. Rava says, I've been engrossed in Torah perpetually for so long that I actually don't know if I'm a Bainani or if I am a tzaddik. Or in other words, he says, I'm like a person who's engrossed in Torah for so long that my animal soul has not emerged. So how am I meant to know if the animal soul is sleeping or if the animal soul is non-existent? If the animal soul is sleeping, I'm a Bainani. If the animal soul is not existent, I'm a tzaddik. Now there's other difficulties with the statement of Rava, I'll have to be honest, other difficulties that I have. But the basic understanding, the take-home message is as follows. To clarify, Rava was a tzaddik. He was an unbelievably righteous person. He was a tzaddik. What he was saying was conceptually explaining that a Bainani is able to not even feel the animal soul because of the amount of Torah that they are learning. And the time they're learning, spending learning Torah and spending davening, they are able, just like we were saying previously, in the time of davening, that a person's animal soul can be asleep. But it seems that even a Bainani, throughout his whole day, if he's so tuned into davening and learning, his animal soul will be asleep the whole time. But the question is, or the statement rather, is that person whose animal soul is asleep, they don't even know for themselves if the animal soul is asleep or if the animal soul has disappeared. How do they know? And in a way, the answer is they don't. And therefore, because they don't know, they have to be on guard. As the Mishnah previously says, even if the whole world tells you that you are a tzaddik, consider yourself as if you are a Rasha. It might be your animal soul has left, it might not be your animal soul has left. What you know from your perspective is your animal soul has not manifested itself. So amazing, like really amazing. But the take home is it might still be there and it might be dormant. So just watch out. Just watch out. Right. Fine. However, so now, taking the case of Rava and going back to your average Bainani, who's more of a struggle, that your average Bainani has holy thought, speech, and action all the time, but it's a struggle. It might not be a struggle during davening and Torah learning, but it's a struggle at other times, whether it's eating or doing work, whatever the case may be. So it's called, now don't take this the wrong way, but for your Bainani, this is not called true service. Why? Because when the moment of davening or when the moment of learning Torah leaves, the animal soul comes back with more strength. Now, the reason why we say it, well, one of the understandings why we say it's not called true service, because the word truth means eternal. So because this Benoni was in a state of holiness and purity, and his animal soul wasn't even fighting or kicking during davening, is that an eternal happening in his life? No. No, it's not. It's a temporary one. Therefore, how can you call it true? Because true means eternal. True emes means eternal. Torah emes. Torah is eternal. Before the world, during the world, after the world, Torah is emes. Other things are sheker, it's falsehood. Nevertheless, without a doubt, to clarify, this is for the Benoni, his service, his consummate service, without a doubt, 100%. But comparison to the tzaddik, when the tzaddik leaves davening, the animal soul is not there. When the tzaddik does whatever the tzaddik does, even if it's not learning Torah and davening, even if it's being involved in worldly matters, for the tzaddik, it's true service, all of it's true service, because the animal soul is not there throughout all of it, and it's consistent. Now, that is why it's not understood. It's very difficult, nearly impossible for us to understand truly what a tzaddik is. For your average Jew, even a Benoni, truth be told, to understand what a tzaddik is, because the tzaddik lives a life. As I like to put it, your Benoni is in the water. Some are floating, some are like drowning, chas v'sholom, but truth be told, spiritually, that's the reality of it. Your tzaddik's flying in the clouds. He's like Superman, flying in the clouds. Going from one sphere to the next, one horizon to the next, and the Benoni is at that same point, struggling to stay afloat. Fine. Fine. So then, one last thing. The Alter Rebbe brings in the attribute of emes itself, and here he just discusses it a bit more briefly, but it's explained at more length in other places. And the idea is that we as Yidden have this attribute of truth from Yaakov Avinu, from Yaakov our forefather. He imbued the attribute of truth, of emes and of rachamim. And we as Yidden are able to tap into that within ourselves. The attributes of Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, we have within ourselves. But particularly in Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, we have Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. Yaakov being Tiferes, which is Rachamim and Emes. So if you don't get understood that last minute, in simple words, we all have within ourselves deep down the attribute of truth. One of the ways of tapping into it is actually through the concept of mercy, having mercy on my soul, having mercy on my own godly soul, that the animal soul is fighting and kicking and potentially even winning the battle. And that having mercy on our godly soul gives us the ability and the strength to tune into the essence of our godly soul, which gives us the strength to bring out within ourselves a deeper strength and a deeper light to really win the war and the battle between the animal soul and the godly soul. And that should be obviously understood as the godly soul winning the war and the battle. That's who we are essentially. But just to clarify, in our conscious selves, we have the struggle within ourselves. The Benoni struggle is more balanced. There's two types of Benonis. I'm not getting into that now, but the point is your Benoni struggle is a bit more balanced. But even though it's balanced, the godly soul has the upper hand. And for a person who's not a Benoni, there could be moments where it's the exact opposite way, that the animal soul's got the upper hand and the animal soul is winning. But through the attributes of truth, we're able to tune into a deepest inner strength to assist us, to give us the upper hand truly, and to win the struggle.